You know what? Guess what, guys? I just found where I was stuck. I just found the next area I need to go to. So, persistence pays off, I guess. Yeah? I guess so. What's up, folks, and welcome to an Indie Retro Ramble Fusion. So, you may remember a little while ago, we covered a game on this channel called Trophy, and it is from a new mini publisher called 8-Bit Legit, which is actually taking basically homebrew projects that were made to run on legit older consoles and giving them a second go on modern systems. Well, this is their latest effort that they've come out with, and it's similar to Trophy in some ways, but it's very different in others. So this is Battle Kid Fortress of Peril. So I'm playing this on the Nintendo Switch, but it's out in several different places. The Switch is the version they really wanted me to cover. And, well, I guess you could call this a Mega Man Vania, kind of, but that's even not a great descriptor of it. So this is another game that was originally coded for the NES, as if that isn't obvious at this point. It's actually got a fairly lengthy intro to it, but after that, there isn't too much more of it. It does have a story to it, but it's kind of a, evil guy gonna wreck the world, you gotta go deal with it kind of thing. And the idea is that you're getting through his fortress, full of trials and challenges to try to keep you away from him. Now, one of the things that I often talk about in these collections is, these re-releases, is how good are the features. And one of my major criticisms about Trophy was that it basically didn't have any. I'm sad to say that this one is exactly the same. You've got a manual that you can look through, which is actually kind of cool. It's kind of written like an old school NES manual. It's a simple presentation, but it looks nice, and I think it's pretty good. And you've got 4 options for your borders. That's it. There's nothing else you can do with this at all. Any features you're thinking of are not here, including one that in a game like this, to be honest with you, I think is kind of unforgivable. So I'm going to show you what that is. We'll skip to the menu here. And so as you can see here, this was a title that was developed quite a number of years ago, but this re-release, it's gotten a re-release over here. And based on what I can tell, there's actually changes in the design and the level layout between this version and the original. Password system. And the passwords for this, you absolutely need, because this can be a fairly long game. And, well, look at how long they are. Yeah. One of the features this game is lacking is the ability to save. There are no save states, so you can't just suspend the game and come back later. And there's no actual saves when you hit a checkpoint. When you get to a checkpoint in the game, it gives you your password, and you have to enter that if you exit the game and want to resume where you were. I'm sorry, in a modern collection like this that's being sold for money, I don't care if it's even $5. Oh yeah, also you can have the game has a death counter. It doesn't remember it based on the password. So if you want it, you have to enter it. Also, that number is accurate. Yeah. No save states in something like this, and having to do this large-scale system where you actually have to write down a long password and enter it. I'm sorry. No, guys, it's 2023. You got to do better. There are games that are sold for a pittance that have features like that. You guys got to get your framework tied up. I mean, their framework runs on Unity as far as I know, so this is a thing that can be done. Personally, I think you should have hooks in the emulator that when someone goes to a checkpoint, the emulator just creates a save state. So basically, it's like doing it manually, except it's automated, and it's just transparent to the user. You can do that. Other games have done that. I just think that the lack of features in this really doesn't hold up and kind of is a strike against it. And I hope that's something that 8-Bit Legit can improve in their future releases. But as for the game itself, well, you're seeing a little bit here. Now, I'm going to give you guys just a little bit of a tour here because, well, I played this game for a few hours now, and I'm actually stuck. I can't figure out where I have to go next. And I tried to use a walkthrough, and that is how I learned that I think this version is different from the original. Because after the boss I defeated and the item I picked up, the walkthrough was telling me to go to totally different places than what I was being presented with. So I think the structure of the game may have been changed between the two versions. Nothing wrong with that. I actually think that's kind of cool, but it does make things a little more it can make things a little tricky in situations like this. And unfortunately, so these are the checkpoints. As you can see, continue point marked. All it does is give you a password. So that's something you got to deal with. So yeah, I actually, so I've defeated 2 bosses at this point. You can actually see that up in the UI up top. And there are 3 different upgrades that you can get throughout the game, as well as different keys, which will allow you to pass certain points that are gated off. And the reason I kind of call this a Mega Man-vania is because it's very platformer heavy. And it is a Metroidvania in that you have a large world that you will be expected to go through and to backtrack in. And you can see it has kind of a very Mega Man-y style to it, and, you know, in terms of art style and the level design and things like that. But that's kind of where the Mega Man-ness ends, because there are no weapons that you pick up from the bosses. You can't choose the order in which you're going to pursue the bosses. You know, this is generally a linear experience, so, but there are things that you can miss in the world as well, I believe, and so that, you know, if you want 100% it, you are going to have to explore. There's also no mini-map in this game, so it's much more like the original Metroid than most of the newer ones where you have an auto-map. Now, that is all by design. This is a game that is very exploration-heavy, and what I find kind of interesting about it is that though there are enemies in this that you can take out, really the core point of this game is both the exploration and the fact that every level is almost like a little combat and traversal puzzle, which is kind of cool. You will die a lot in this. I have died, like you saw, I have died over 200 times so far. And you will have to traverse the checkpoint distribution. I'm going to say is not, it's not unfairly distributed. It's reasonably sparsed out, and I actually think it's not too bad. But you're going to have to traverse sometimes some very, very difficult puzzles in order to get to the in between the different checkpoints. And some of these I was trying for quite some time to figure out, like a half hour or more stuck on just one checkpoint. But because the checkpoints are not spread too far out, I never got overly frustrated with it. Sometimes I did, because this game felt to me like it had a little bit of controller lag, and there were some jumps that I was sure I made that the game didn't think I did. But that could totally be me, don't take my word on that. And you know, some of those puzzles were getting really frustrating to me, but because the checkpoints were never that long, when I managed to get to another one, it didn't take me all day to make a little bit of progress, and I felt really satisfied. I was like, yeah, I finally beat that thing, you know? And each of the different biomes, there kind of are different biomes in the game, and each of them do present different kinds of challenges in terms of environmental hazards that you're going to have to deal with, enemies you're going to have to deal with. Like this area is you know, like the Airman stage in Mega Man, right? Where you've got fans to deal with and things like that. And I think the level design is actually pretty good. You know, you could call this a precision platformer, but it's definitely not that level of difficult. This is not Meat Boy hard. This is not even as hard as I would say as some old school NES games often were. Is it easy? Well, you can make it easier. This game actually has 5 difficulty levels, which I thought was pretty cool. And some of the later difficulty levels are for the truly hardcore. One of the reasons this game has a death counter is because one of the higher difficulty levels has a 50 death limit before it's permanent game over. And the hardest level has a 1 death limit, which you cray if you playing on that level. But that's they should have basically called that level Speedrunner, because that's obviously who that's targeting. And it can get easier with time. You will get upgrades that improve your jump ability. You will be able eventually to do more damage, and you know, you'll have a lot of opportunities to better your character, and you're not fighting the entire game sort of with your out-of-the-box setup, if you will, which is nice. And I do like the diversity in the level design. I like the different biomes. I like the different challenges. Like I said, some of these timing ones can be really gnarly, and I feel like it does feel to me, again, it could just be me and my old man reflexes, but it does feel a little bit to me like there is some delay in here, which, given that this is effectively an emulator, this one is particularly gnarly. But I had it down at one point. Given that this is an emulator, you know, there could be lag involved. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But my biggest problem at this point, and some people are going to like this, so I'm not considering it a knock against the game in particular, but is the fact that you can get lost. I beat 2 bosses, and I feel like I've traversed the entire bloody map, and I can't figure out where I have to go. And there are some fast travel points there that you can see. There we go. At the top of the map where it shows TP, that's travel point. So there are multiple travel points in this, but they are very spread out. Like, I've only found 2 of them so far. So you're not going to be able to use these to really zip around the map like you would in, say, a Bethesda RPG or something like that, you know? And that's a thing to consider. There is going to be a lot of traversal and a lot of backtracking. So this is where the second boss was, actually, that I beat. So it's supposed to be somewhere from here. Now, one of the interesting things the game does do is, though it doesn't have an auto map, you'll see those coordinate numbers in the upper right corner. And that's exactly what those are. Each map in the game, or each screen in the game, has a particular coordinate number. And you can use those in order to figure out where you are and potentially where you have to go. But you see, it gives you cryptic hints like this. So this is the hint it gave me after the boss. And I kind of have an idea what it's talking about here. But yeah, so you see there's a little 1 block there. So that's the 1 key that you need, the number 1 key, which I've acquired by taking out that boss. So, you know, these are different challenges that you're going to have to run into. You're going to potentially have to spend a lot of time exploring, a lot of time running around, trying to figure out where things are, because, like I said, the only walkthrough that is available for this presently is for the original NES game, which doesn't seem designed the same way as this one, so it's not going to help you very much. It was no help to me at this point in the game. So, you know, that's something to keep in mind. And you're going to run into interesting things like with the enemy design. So, for example, these little slimes here, right? These are what's called immortal slimes, because you can't kill them, you can actually only stun them. And that makes things interesting because they take multiple hits to stun initially and then fewer to re-stun. And what you have to do is make sure that you take them out in a very particular way that you can make that traversal without actually taking any damage, because you can very easily if you're not careful. It's a neat system, and it's the fact that the game doesn't give you any other weapons like it does in Mega Man, at least not to this point, but it gives you a lot of different challenges that require you to use your pellet gun in different and interesting ways. And I think that's actually kind of cool. They've decided to take a little bit more of a minimalist approach and making you just work with and master your one starting weapon. And I actually don't mind that. I think that it can be cool to have those limitations in place when done a certain way. But like I said, I'm honest to God lost in this. At one point, I was debating actually emailing the devs and being like, you know where I'm supposed to go? Because I don't know what to do here. But I feel like I'd seen enough of the different biomes and creatures that I could show this to you guys. And since this is generally a first impression series, that's what I decided to do. But I think this actually is cool. It's, you know, I love seeing fan games like this that clearly had some work and craft put into them. Like, is the art in this the best that the NES can do? No. But I think the music's pretty good. I think the level design is actually really well done. I love the fact that the developer has kind of made each room its own little, like I said, its own little puzzle, where, and it's almost like playing a lot of older school arcade games where you can memorize the level and you can feel yourself getting better each time as you go through and figure out each puzzle and get between each checkpoint. You can feel yourself getting better at the game and being like, yeah, like I can, you know, it doesn't leave you constantly bashing your head against it in like a torture platformer kind of way would. It's, you can feel yourself organically getting better and growing and just improving, and that's often a tough balance to strike, and they did a really good job of it here, I think. So I think this actually is pretty cool, and if you are a fan of old school platformers, I think you definitely would like this, but you're gonna have to take into account the fact that, yeah, there are times when you're probably gonna be lost, and, you know, once this game's been out for a bit, there may be some Let's Plays of it or some video guides that you could follow to help you get past where you're stuck. There are none of those at this time. There are some videos of the NES game, but again, it feels like this isn't the same game that came out on the in cartridge form a number of years ago. So, and I actually think that's good, because you're not just playing, you know, it means they put some work into this new version, and I think that's actually a really cool thing to see them putting in that effort. But yeah, something to consider. And my biggest thing is that I don't like being stuck in games for very long. I don't mind having to find my way around, but if I can't do it after a certain period of time, I just start to get very frustrated and go like, if I can't find a solution to this, I'm just kind of done. And I'll be honest with you, that's kind of where I'm at this point. If I can figure out a way to get past where I've been stuck, I'd probably pick it up and keep working at it. The game starts off relatively easy, like it doesn't feel like it's that bad, but these traversals, especially the ones that require some specific timing, can get quite gnarly at certain points, and I'm only 2 bosses in, so I can guarantee you this is going to get a lot harder. So this is going to turn into, I think, old school, what I called old school hard before, and there's absolutely a market for that. You know, there's been a bit of a renaissance in difficult games the last few years, you know, with the Souls series in particular, and people are starting to get into the idea of a game that's designed to really challenge them and really requires them to get good rather than being led by the nose. And that's what this one is. It's going to require practice, it's going to require patience, and you know, but you'll feel like you really did something cool once you best its challenges. And I think it's great at that. I just don't like I said, I just don't like being lost. And that's where this has left me at this point. So, you know, that's something to keep in mind. But yeah, I have been enjoying this. I do think it's interesting. Like I said, I would like to figure out how to get past where I am, and I'll probably keep doing it. But I will say that the main strike against it for me is the fact that the engine driving this is so incredibly bare bones. You know, we have collections out there from devs who are frankly not much bigger than this one that have a number of different features and quality of life improvements in them, and especially in a game where you need to save regularly and where passwords in particular are such an integral part of it. And long passwords, making people fat finger in long passwords with a controller when clearly the tech is there to put in a proper save system, that's a real frustration for me. And if this was a more expensive title, I would really come down hard on it for that. So that is something to keep in mind. But, you know, if you're playing on a console like the Switch where you can suspend it, or where you can, or, you know, even on the Xbox, the newer Xboxes with quick resume, then it makes it a little easier to jump in and out of it. But if you're going to go away from it for a while, then you're going to need that. You're going to need to remember you're going to need a pad and paper or your phone to jot down those passwords. And that's just not in 2023. They got to do better than that. So, you know, I don't think they'll be able to patch that into this game. I mean, maybe they could, but I doubt it. But that is something I think they really need to work on for their future releases, because honestly, if I was another, not a critic, but another player who was into these sort of re-releases of modern titles and saw the features being offered in this versus even a lot of the games that Rodaleka is putting out, I'd be like, what the heck, man? Like, you know, why are you charging me with such basic things omitted? So I know I've harped on that a lot, but I really do think that's important. But yeah, otherwise, I think this is a very well-designed game, especially for a fan title, and it's cool. It's for the type of people who like exploration-heavy games with some challenge in it. But there's more of you than there used to be, which I'm very happy about. So I'm glad to see that this fan title has gotten a chance to get a little bit more exposure in the bigger world, and hopefully this can introduce what's clearly become a fairly what's clearly a title that already has its fan base, but to be able to expand it to people who don't keep NESs around and can't afford to buy cartridges for it. So yeah, that is Battle Kid Fortress of Peril. It is out now. Like I said, I like it, but it's got a few caveats that is really going to come down to your own personal taste. So just know those when you're going into it. But there is a lot of potential fun to be had here for people who are into this kind of thing for sure. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. I do appreciate it. If you like the video, please do all the normal YouTube things. It does help the channel out a great deal. And leave a comment down below. Tell me, what do you think of this game? Are there other modern retro platformers that you'd like to see? Do you know of any other cool fan games that you would like to see get this sort of re-release treatment? Because this is a community that doesn't get the love it deserves, and honestly, it's why 8-Bit Legit was formed, was to help get these things exposure, and I think it's great that they're out here doing that, and I would really like to see, this get some more. And you know what? Guess what, guys? I just found where I was stuck. I just found the next area I need to go to, so persistence pays off, I guess, yeah? I guess so. So, alright, and as always, you can follow me over at twitch.tv/pxabstraction for multiple variety streams a week. I cover other indie games and actual retro stuff over there, including a bunch of games that are better suited to streaming than YouTube. We have a fantastic community there, and I would love to see you be a part of it. Thanks again, all, and I'll see you in the next video. You guys have yourselves a good one. Take her easy.